Definition of domain. First I will write the definition and then I will explain it to you. The domain of a function is the set of all possible input values, or you can say arguments, for which the function is defined. It means whatever you put the value of a domain, it should give a valid output. In other words, it's the collection of values that you can substitute into the function without causing any undefined behavior. What is undefined behavior? It is division by 0, which gives us infinity, or taking the square root of a negative number, which is not allowed. So these are undefined behaviors. Let's take some examples. Polynomial function x square plus 3x minus 5. So domain. These functions, polynomial functions, are defined for all real numbers. There is no restriction. As I have written here, these polynomial functions are defined for all real numbers because there are no restrictions in these functions. So what will be the domain? Since there is no restriction, so I am writing the domain. This is all real numbers. Taking the next example, that is of a rational function. As I have written a function which is in the form of p by q. So range. So domain will be, the rational numbers are defined for all real numbers, but there is one exception. That is, there should not be 0 in the denominator, since it makes the function undefined. So what will you do? Set the denominator equals to 0 and solve. Denominator is x minus 4 equals to 0, gives us x is equals to 4. Therefore, the function is undefined at x is equals to 4. It means domain is all real numbers except 4. Taking the next example, that is of a square root function. Function is square root x minus 3. So, defining the domain of this function. Square root functions are defined when the expression under the square root is non-negative, since the negative sign is not allowed under the radical sign. So what will we do? Set the argument of the square root to be greater than or equals to 0, which means non-negative numbers. This will give me x greater than or equals to 3. So what will be the domain? 3 is included and all the numbers till positive infinity. Range is all real numbers greater and equals to 3. Fourth example is logarithm function. These functions, let me take the example first. K of x is equals to log x plus 2. Okay, logarithmic functions are defined for positive arguments. So set the argument of the logarithm to be greater than 0. So x plus 2 is greater than 0. Solving this inequality gives x is greater than minus 2. All the real numbers greater than minus 2. Absolute value function. Function is mx is equals to absolute x minus 1. Defining the domain. Absolute value functions are defined for all real numbers. Why? Because the absolute value of any real number is defined. There is no restriction. So what will be the domain? Domain will be all real numbers. Here is the summary of today's lecture. Polynomial functions are defined for all real numbers since there is no restriction. Rational numbers are also defined for all real numbers except where the denominator is 0. Square root functions. Square root functions are defined where the argument under the radical sign or square root sign is non-negative. Logarithmic functions are defined where the argument of the logarithm is positive. And absolute value functions are defined for all real numbers. Thank you for watching. Allah Hafiz.